Okay, show. I got a big treat today. My friend's here, who's a linguist and a expert at mass communication. And Rob and I are very excited to welcome her. Hi, Rob. How's it going?
I'm great today on this lovely Saturday. What is it? January 23rd? Is it January
Imagine that.
23rd? Oh,
Yes,
it's cold
going
here in New York,
fast.
but we're happy to have Chad. So I'm
Happy to
excited.
be here. Happy to be here.
So, Chad, why don't you tell my audience, since you're new to the show, who you are, where you're from, what you're thinking?
Well, I'm a mass media communications graduate 20 years ago, and clearly I had to drop back and punt and do guerrilla marketing and stay the course and track an active litmus based on patterns in sales and math, and it wasn't being done because conjecture and opinion had the microphone.
Right.
And of course, the working environments were playing the game of a meat market. I mean, the whole thing was corrupt. So I have done guerrilla marketing and stayed the course. And the other thing that I have an affinity for is phonics, as my family were the first people to write the phonetic dictionary. So I'm attuned to hearing sounds, and I track specifically, if I may be so bold, with John 1:1, the evolution and migration patterns of how language naturally seeks balance.
Okay.
And I try to share that through a guerrilla marketing, just pointing those nuances out online.
Well, what do you see right now? What's clearly that you're seeing right now that is being inverted, or the pattern that you're seeing right now in the narrative that we're being fed?
Well, the emotional and psychological basic psychology with Maslow's hierarchy of needs in advertising, that's how people are preyed upon to buy a product, to sway them to make a product worthwhile. And the news is a product.
Right.
And it is a very sad derailment and day, as I've said online and personally. And I mentioned I've gone into impressive dead skin cell math territory when the Lion King children's Disney movie is giving a better metamorphic reality and eventuality than the news.
Right.
People are ignorant. They're not stupid, and they will gravitate toward the truth. They want the truth.
Right.
And the censorship of dementia and what happens off the mortal coil, it makes the warmongering games would end, because when you've seen dementia and Lou Gehrig's and stage 7 Alzheimer's, it makes a bullet look charming.
Right.
There's no nice way to say it, but the fear mongering would be over. And to disease for someone, disease doesn't care what nationality you are. It does not discriminate, does not care what religion you are, and it tells the tale. It's an active litmus.
Hey, Chad, I was really curious about that. You mentioned the book, the Phonics book. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? That's really interesting. I never heard about that. And how did you get to that?
Well,
I mean, your family.
After college, I got to it. My brother was so gracious and pointed it out, but I've always had an affinity. This is the old dictionary, and let me see if I can hold it up.
William
But it's the old
Bowles.
phonetic dictionary, and this is what my family did. And the movie My Fair Lady, Dr. Higgins was a teacher of phonetics, Pygmalion, and that script was based on the skill set of my dead peoples. So I have a natural I'm drawn to it. It's the sounds are so clear, and people that track Faulkner, who wrote in phonics, oh my God, GAWD.
Right.
He spelled and wrote in phonics.
And he's
I,
from where you're from, so that makes sense. He's from Mississippi too, right?
well, I was actually from North Carolina, born in Charlotte and grew up in Wilmington and kind of a transient. But yes, my mother is from Mississippi and relocated back there, and I've spent a lot of time there, currently in Florida. So.
Right. So with the phonics, what are you like in the pattern sense? Because you talked to me a lot about how words, that they register and the words of charges and how you can turn a word around. I find that very interesting because we're being gaslit on a mass scale by our media and our corporate structure here and tech and everything, and it's a giant gaslighting. And I know that you're one that can pull apart what's being said from what's really being said. So as we're watching this this mass attack on our psyche, our intellect, our common sense, everything, what do you see as the pattern in that message?
Well, words are containers for power, and they can change someone's entire free will of choices. And John 1:1 is, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word, and the Word became flesh. And evolution and migration patterns of language, like water, whine, bitch about it. It seeks that balance. It ebbs to seek and find balance. The parish hall. We all have to perish. We're all hauling that around. So the church, we pay people. That's what they're paid for. Tax-free jobs, mind, body, and spirit. And to spirit, you stab it, you own your decisions, and that balance. Ask a doctor, your doctor. Your body is the vehicle for your soul. When you go to the doctor, you're parking your boat. These things, this information, this knowledge helps. It can make or break a person's day. It's healthcare. Right. And mind, body, and spirit. And what I've seen is they've taken the mind and this intellect. If there's a moral, as Charlie and you mentioned, and everybody is, your body being the vehicle for your soul, you worshiping energy, and to share good, pertinent information as journeymen, a moral compass. Because if one part of the living body suffers, we all suffer together.
Right. And
there's a duty. And it impedes on everyone's journey as a tourist. And it does affect healthcare. And we, as I've said, they've had John 1:1, they've had the printing press and the remote control. This is a travesty, what's happened. And we pay them to give us John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, God was the Word became flesh. And that should be explained. They need to stop talking about John 3:16 because clearly that's too complex.
What is that, John 3:16?
For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son to live and die for us. I mean, a dead baby suicide mission takes that off the table for righteous indifference. That's some complex stuff. They need to get back to basics of John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. How the Word evolves and has migration patterns and seeks balance. Because mind, body, and spirit. Without the mind, the body can't heal.
And the Word, when you're talking the Word and the Word with God, you're talking also about truth and manipulating the truth by spreading propaganda and lies is essentially doing Satan's work rather than God's work.
And I had a question about that. Is it relate to manifesting if you will. In other words, the words manifest a form of reality.
Speak it out and make it real. You speak out the energy. I mean, it all goes hand in hand. Melody knows firsthand. She had an incident where she fell. I said, that's probably going to get stronger and heal. It's probably going to be an asset for you. And she saw it that way, viewed it that way, and sure enough,
Right.
it helped her journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this thing of guinea pigging people and cutting the mind and the spirit out of healthcare,
Right.
where the motives of a feeding heart affecting and your body being an interactive event through pain is bread, flowers, needs. Your body's a vehicle and your pain is a blinker.
Right.
And the end is the beginning. I mean, hell, it's fabulous. Hail to you, Lord Christ, Allah refreshing, Buddha dummy, hail, or hell, blocked in education. You didn't get it. You know, the VIP room, who wants to be hanging out with the intellectually impoverished? You know, people, water seeks its own level. People want to be with their own ilk. And people that did the work, the investment of their time, profits. You can't make it up. English didn't exist when Christ was on the planet. Planet. And then you have world war. Well, the world is to spin, to whirl. And
right.
then
So you're saying everything started without, it wasn't written, it was spoken. And that's the energy. And, you know, it's funny, we always forget how things evolved and that there was no, that all of what you're saying, there was no guide to it. It was really that it sought out itself to define itself by words.
The other thing is the Socratic paradox explains it, and no one's going to outthink Socrates. I mean, good luck with that. There was no cable. I mean, they've got Plato and Aristotle. I mean, Socrates had no distractions. He could sit by a tree and think all day. No one is going to outthink that. But the Socratic paradox is an indictment on humanity that they don't every fifth grader should understand it, not know it because everyone knows it, but authentically understand it. In that presence, there was no presence, there was nothing there. And the Socratic paradox in its crescendo states, true wisdom is knowing that you know nothing. And that echo of the spirit of nothing was there. In the beginning, there wasn't anything there. So the dialogue, the emotional and the mental situational tennis going on. So in essence, presence. Lucifer, don't act like an animal. Lucifer, take your fur off. You can do better. God invented the bad guy. There wasn't anything there. And the Socratic paradox, cellularly, you can't distribute what you haven't been. And Socrates goes into painstaking detail about this palm with nothing and the energy of nothing. He goes in to even talk about animals defending themselves. They don't know much, but he argues an animal, whether it's a scorpion or whether it's lions, tigers, and bears,
or a human,
can understand nothing, that death. Why would it protect itself? Because it does know nothing. It does understand total annihilation. And when you know that another living entity can understand total annihilation or nothing exists, then you can negotiate with it. Right. Because you have a founding point. And I mean, he goes into, I think it's in Plato's Republic, where Plato mentions the Socratic paradox and good and evil. And so there is that drawback of the universe of feeling like nothing, the take back. Widow in the Bible, it talks about widows and orphans are very protected by God. And what do they know better than anything else? No presence, no presence. No one is there. No one will help you. They know nothing better than the average person. And if human beings on the collective journey knew that when you feel like nothing, and emptiness, no presence, no presence, that's God's home. That's why.
I have a
That's
question
why.
about that.
Go ahead.
So, in my layman's terms, what I'm hearing is that to understand kind of the empty, it's not, I wouldn't call it emptiness, but the peace, the quiet of nothingness is very godly. And a lot of times when you are in spiritual practices, you are looking for that nothingness, which is kind of that inner self, which connects to source, whatever, right?
Right.
Is
It's
that
a neutral, it's a good place to
Right.
feel. It should not, you shouldn't be getting magic beans with side effects to rob Peter to pay Paul. That's why every fifth grader should understand the Socratic paradox, that neutral spot of when you feel no presence, know that that's a holy feeling.
right?
And that's the birth and dawn of the universe. And every human being feels that emptiness and that loneliness and that it's a sacred spot.
Right.
Finding comfort there is, I think, is a key. And I think in today's environment, we've been so polluted with the idea that you need to get stuff, or you need all these things. And what I found is in different parts of my life where I've lost things, I've started to realize much more and more that those things aren't so important, or are not important at all. Like, Mel, you lost a watch the other day.
Exterior stimulus in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's conditioning people for exterior stimulus. And the boomers really got screwed with the dawn of the radio and television and movies and the telephone, because it was an exterior stimulus blitzkrieg on them.
Right. Like
And
the
then
internet.
our generation came along with video games and let's double down and everything else and the remote control, where we were so saturated with exterior stimulus that we wanted interior understanding. So it was a conditioning, a kind of a zeitgeist of conditioning for us to, for our generation, Generation X, to be drawn of, well, we've gotten so much exterior. The last bastion was, let's go interior.
Yeah. And we've discussed, me and you, many times about the removal of God from our entertainment, from our schools, from our country, from everything, and how it's been
That's pish posh. It's like saying you're going to remove gravity or you're going to remove the air.
right.
Good luck with that. You'll wear it anyway.
Right.
God is God.
Right. Well, you also have an interesting thing, because you actually were neighbors to Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, in New York, and you didn't know who he was then. I mean, you knew who he was, but you didn't know what we know now. And you had some interesting insight on your take, because I know you used to see him every day, and you really didn't know much, but you knew enough. So
I jogged the reservoir every morning, the 1.8 miles. I jog the reservoir before I go to work, and pass by the shady house with the obnoxious amount of cameras. I mean, we're talking about clearly disturbed people's that a guilty conscience, and everyone in the block knew that when you need that many cameras, clearly, a litmus indicator, whatever was going on was not good, and whatever they were thinking about, clearly, even if they weren't doing anything wrong, when you need that many cameras
outside,
clearly,
right?
Clearly,
Outside.
and it was kind of a joke of the neighborhood. People would come over and they'd say, hey, by the way, what's going on with the building with all the cameras? And it was
Oops.
just,
And
yeah.
that was what, 15, 20 years ago. So this was
2000, I lived there from 2000 to 1999 because I got a Priceline discount because I flew on Y2K. I got the cheapest plane ticket at 12 o'clock midnight ever. My airplane taxes were more than my ticket. I was so
smarty pants.
oh yeah, I was so proud of that. And then to that, Bin Laden, potato, patata. I left 2001.
Okay. But you lived literally next door to him and you saw him all the
Well, I
time.
lived at 19 East 71st and he lived at 9.
Right.
And
So,
then
yeah.
Cosby was adjacent.
Right.
Right.
People don't know that. I've told people that because you told me Bill Cosby lived across the street.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, he was still America's dad at that time. So his chef, Conrad, I'd see him at Eli Zabar's grocery store that was in the neighborhood. And I was introduced to him by my neighbor, a friend and neighbor. And I'd always go, what's Bill eating? What's Bill eating? Oh, I'm going to get that too. And then he'd leave his window open on the 3rd floor and we had access to the roof. And I'd shout out to the open window and go, Bill, want to join us for drinks?
Yeah.
Over
Thank
here on the
God.
rooftop.
Thank God
And
it never happened. You would have been, you might have been.
I invited Charlotte too, his wife. And I just talked to the window. It's one of my traditions. And they go, she's trying to invite Bill Cosby. He never replies over for cocktails. But
Thank God.
anyway, yeah.
Thank God. And so, so you told me that you had been, I know that you were, because you come from a long family bloodline and everything, and you were invited several times to events with Epstein and these people. And you told me that you always felt, like I felt in Hollywood, that you always felt that there was something, that it wasn't, like you told me about how you talked to some girls and they were like, who are you? Well, you tell the story.
Well, it didn't make sense till Captain Hindsight. I mean, I had the rose colored glasses when I was in my 20s and it just was bon chance, it was just pure luck. And you've said it on other podcasts, how when people would bring up, I grew up, my formative years were where the Marie Laveau House of Voodoo and Zulu, the voodoo that you do, and
Right.
all of these things, and gun culture and hunting culture. So, and adrenaline rushes from hunting kills and how to be appreciative to get sustenance. So, I mean, all of this myriad of conditioning that I didn't appreciate until hindsight protected me.
Right.
It's been really bizarre. People would bring up things and it would it was kind of, I wasn't gameable.
Right.
Yeah, it just was
But they tried. They kept trying because but you told me a story, one of your stories, that when you were once at a party, you were talking to some of these girls, and now in retrospect, you realize that they were being trafficked, but at the time you didn't, and they saw that you had some kind of strength or something, some independence or whatever, and they were drawn to you, and you didn't realize at the time what was going on. They were kind of looking for help, but you didn't know.
They were asking me basically,
because he had all those girls living there and also down the street. So, how would you know? They look like they had normal lives.
Absolutely. But then the conversations, there was a huge disconnect. And conversations don't make sense in the moment. And then you realize, oh, that was going on. That's why they said that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't they once ask you, weren't they asking you which man owned you?
I was like, what are you talking about? It was alien. It was like an alien event of, what do you mean? I don't understand. I'm not tracking the scent. And
And it's like, how could you have known? See, a lot of people say that, especially because I really like Virginia Roberts, who's the first whistleblower on him from Mar-a-Lago. Chad and I also both are in Palm Beach as well. And she, people still to this day say, well, you could have gotten out, you didn't know, or whatever. But what they don't realize is that by the time she, they got her, like you've seen how, like you said, even when you saw him, and I know we know some other people like this, but he sucks you in to a point where you don't think you can leave. So even if these girls that you would see at the parties and stuff with that was with him and his friends, he's not the only one. There's a group of them. How would you possibly know? They're kind of brainwashed, right?
well, it's a perfect storm. They're easy prey. They're compromised. They have low self-esteem. Uh, yeah, it's a perfect storm. My computer says, yeah, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that you don't know to appreciate until hindsight that you have. Gaming willful ignorance. And as I said, spending a lot of time near New Orleans and a port city, coming of age, the dangers. And this is before cell phones. And a lot of my peers, we were told once you're on private property, you're in a dangerous environment. And this is before cell phones. And you make that decision and it could change your life, whether it's a hotel room that has a toilet and a bed, what's going to go in that space, and it's private. You're not protected. A public space, you're protected. And especially in port cities, there's a nasty underbelly that can eat people and spit them out alive every day. Welcome to the jungle, and our generation, pre-cell phone, you don't get a second chance to make the right, safe decision.
Right.
When we were going out as young adults, it was when you leave the safety in numbers. Once you leave a public space, then you can't call for help.
Right.
If he said, she said, you have agreed to be in a dangerous situation.
Right.
And once again, when you have adults leaving it cleaner than they found it, giving good information to the youth to protect themselves, the rules of engagement, we were given a heads up. Our peer group was given, this is the way, don't put yourself in harm's way. Also, one that a lot of people knew, if you go into Central Park after midnight, you are inviting trouble.
Right.
Or
if you're moving into an apartment where you don't have to pay anything and some man down the street says, I'm doing this for you to help you, that's usually probably the entry into this world. And once you're in there, that's it. That's really, I know about that one building that he owned where a lot of, models, and they weren't just models, they were, all kinds of girls, that he would give them apartments. And in Manhattan, they never could have afforded those apartments. And he would pay for them and say he was helping their careers, helping them go to school. Of course, he was also molesting them on the side. But like those girls that you would tell me about, once they moved in there and they were sucked in, they had no way out. And that's why, when they saw, a young woman that was there with men that she wasn't owned by, they were like, well, maybe this girl knows what's going on. Who knows in retrospect? But I know that from what we talked about and from what I know myself, once you're in that environment, it's very, very hard to get out. And Epstein also didn't give them spending money. They had to get money from him. He didn't, and he also, people don't realize he seduced a lot of these girls as if he loved them in the beginning, and then it turned out, yeah.
The emotional and psychological blackmail, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Even in the movie, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the guy, he says, people, the power of that. Why didn't you say no?
Right.
When you knew something was amiss, why didn't you say no? And these people are predators and free will. I mean, they reap what they sow. When it's all said and done, I mean, we all saw The Craft in the 90s. You know, you reap what you sow. And a guilty conscience is a powerful thing. And they're censoring the dementia videos of how people exit the mortal coil with a guilty conscience. And the hospice care workers that are looking at the dementia and seeing up close and personal the exit, where heroin and morphine are barely keeping it at bay. Because if they show a guilty conscience, not everybody gets a smooth exit off the mortal coil. And it's all about the end game. The end is the beginning. And that date is waiting for us.
Right.
And
what you mean is how you live your life is how you will end your game.
Yeah, well, free will, let them draw themselves. I mean, that's the only propriety that we as human beings and tourists own, is our choice. Our bodies perform according to the universe of God's design.
There are different choices that we can make, right? And one of the things I think as it relates to linguistics is that I've noticed in maybe the last 10 years, a real stepping up of, the way that you communicate, the way that they're asking us to communicate, whether it's censorship or, kind of different street language where they're changing the way that people kind of connect through language, or even just this censorship, the broadly the social justice type censorship. It's pushing people in a direction. And a lot of it, I think, is kind of the Luciferian plot, which is like live as thou wilt, if you, I forget what the exact sentence is, but
live without wilt. That's Aleister Crowley and the Church of Satan, which is dominating our entertainment. Well, that's what went on at Epstein's Island. And basically, I know what you're saying about how they're changing the meaning of words.
Yes.
And they're making it, instead of, they're calling speech that they hate speech.
Well, they can call, actions speak louder than words. And really, President Reagan, God bless him, if there's no health care for him, good luck to everybody. I mean, that's all I'm saying. And he exited with Alzheimer's, and that is a form of purgatory and oblivion. No rhyme, no reason. When it should be know the rhyme, know the reason. And people can cherry pick or do what they want to do, but at the end, actions speak louder than words. And the dementia, there's good dementia, and then there's bad, violent, mean dementia. There's a whole litmus of dementia out there. But it is a form of purgatory and oblivion. Elvis is checked out. They've left the building.
Right.
And this is their journey. They don't have their faculties.
Right.
And the end is the beginning. And the thing is warmongering people, keeping people scared and frightened of a bullet with their warmongering games. I said it earlier, to disease for someone, free will, let them draw themselves.
Okay.
They're not going to pull a fast one on the universe. It's not happening.
Right.
And the universe is much meaner and crueler than they could ever fathom or dream of.
Right. And also that comes also with these people like Bill Gates and others that play God. They play God. They think that their money and their, like, where they are and everything gives them the power to, because Bill Gates didn't even graduate from undergrad, Harvard. And somehow he's telling everyone, what vaccines to take. He came up with Common Core to dumb down our kids. All of this Rockefeller Foundation, they play God. They tell us what we're supposed to think and what we're supposed to do. And too many people accept it and believe that that's God, or that that's coming from a place of God or a place of, and it's not. I feel like a lot of these people, they play God, and I can't imagine that God is rewarding such a thing on the other side.
Well, I mean, clearly in the beginning, nothing was there. No presence, no presence. They're going to have to out nothing being nothing. So good
Right.
luck with that one. They want to
I
play
know.
God, no presence, no presence. That's it's power's not up for the snatch and grab.
Right,
And
right.
man-made power is, if it's a job title, power can't be taken away. And another thing is power comes through weakness. And a lot of people don't really understand that.
Right.
And that should be for mind, body, and spirit, emotional and psychological health care and well-being. That should be understood.
Right. I agree. Yeah. Also, like you've been saying a lot, you reap what you sow, and to look at actions, not words. And I think that that's really important right now, that people are looking at actions and not getting confused by the words.
Correct. But people are, once again, they're ignorant, not stupid. We have free will to give good words to feed people's mind, body, and spirit. And we choose our words, and our words are in action.
Right.
They're going to lift people up. And the truth does hurt.
Right.
It did good information. It will sting, but it will still be better than not know. It'll still give peace. It might sting. The fact that we're not going to avoid death. We are gonna evolve.
Right.
We're gonna know more tiers. We're gonna know more levels, and we have to meet and greet the universe.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be a victim and martyr.
No.
We want to own our evolution in due course, and the end is the beginning.
Right.
And the more authentic we are about the journey, why the kingfish circles, and we own it, we can all collectively enjoy the ride better.
Right.
But the emotional and psychological blackmail, money's a man-made object. You don't have enough of something, you invent it. Now the universe isn't going to suffer that.
Right.
Human beings are formed in fun, profits, points and ED. I mean, no fun on the inside. In loving kindness, they're not having fun on the outside. I mean, that's a fair trade. I mean,
Right.
I'm just.
Okay, well, we have to wrap it up because we have a time limit here on our recording, but it's fascinating. And I'm hoping you'll come back to the show, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions we can answer next time. And I'm so grateful. You're one of the smartest human beings I've ever met. And the way that you make things, the way that you say things leaves me thinking for hours and putting together
Yes,
the
it
puzzle.
does. Yes,
So,
it does.
I love you so much. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have you back soon, God willing. And thank you, because it's a nice treat to go a little deeper than most people are willing to, and to actually put out information that people can ponder after. That's not just surface. And I really appreciate you doing the show.
I'm thankful to share that we're all on the journey together.
Right. I know.
Thank you so much,
You're such a
Chad.
good heart. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Chad. Bye-bye.
Bye.